Warning: World Weary Podcast occasionally discusses mature themes and uses colorful language.
There is nothing so desperately monotonous as the sea, and I no longer wonder at the cruelty of pirates. James Russell Lowell. Welcome to World Weary Podcast. I'm the British one, Violet Starr.
I'm the American one, Cassiopeia Walker.
Every week, we distract ourselves from the stress and the negative stuff by pondering the weird, the woo-woo, the otherworldly, and just insane stories. Sometimes I think I've had a bad week, but then we tell these stories and I'm either distracted by how amazing humans are, or I'm comforted by well, at least we're not eating ground up dead people or giving birth in a war zone. On that note, what's been shit this week, Cassie?
Just the typical
nightmare.
The nightmare that is
living nightmare.
The living nightmare that is my life. I swear I should have a reality show. If a reality program wants to follow someone.
Some of the things that happen lately, it feels like they've been set up by
I keep looking around for
TV
Truman
producer.
Show cameras. I swear that's my whole life. Ever since I watched the Truman Show, I've been desperately paranoid about it. Sometimes things are so ridiculous and backwards, and you know, when someone doesn't believe you and you have that moment, I sometimes double take to no one in particular, just where I would assume the camera is, just as if to say, what the fuck?
Sometimes
no one's there.
No, I really feel like I'm on a TV celebrity cooking competition show. And I literally have I look behind me and I can see some TV producer person changing the temperature on my oven or giving me the wrong ingredients. And they're literally, sometimes it feels like people are purposely setting me up to fail. Spectacularly on TV.
And that was in our cards last week as well, because I did have that loss of confidence and motivation. I had to push myself through editing this week because I just felt like shit. Yeah. And I don't mean to be this depressing soul every week, hey guys, my life's depressing. Because I really do make the best out of things. I feel like you become a better person through adversity, you know?
Oh, we have determination.
Yeah.
In buckets.
Despite all this bullshit that keeps happening to me, I'm here.
Yeah. No, I've been in a constant state of stress the past week or so, to the point that for the first time in my life, I've physically felt the anxiety. I realized something was very, very wrong with me.
Oh, no.
Really wrong with my body. My breathing was weird. My body was constantly tense, mind darting around, the whole you know what it's like when you have serious anxiety. It's constant impending doom, or someone shouting at you all the time. It's
you can't. It's horrible. It really is horrible.
And it's just how it's when you realize it. Or luckily for me, I became self-aware of it pretty quickly, and was okay, I need to do things to get rid of this now.
Yeah. It's hard to discipline yourself to be at least be aware enough to be okay, this is stress. How do I deal with it now before it becomes
even worse?
Yes.
How does it become,
Because it'll fuck up your life and your health.
So there we go. That's our venting for the week. But anyway, this podcast is all about trying to rekindle that sense of wonder and magic about this universe. It's kind of like the classic relationship advice of, my marriage is boring. Okay, so spice it up then, get some new lingerie, rekindle the spark and passion.
I'm a pirate. Wear your pirate uniform.
This could be the day you see a UFO. This could be the day you haul up a plesiosaur carcass on your boat. And then, I don't know, you could be coming into this podcast thinking, ugh, I don't believe in this stuff. Nah, it's not really true though, is it? And then you go on a dog walk into the forest and you walk into a Sasquatch.
Yeah, and the more listeners that send in these stories, I can't wait to share some of these. We had someone send in a sea monster story, and we can't wait to share these because it's just people have experienced this shit, and it's why not me? Why am I not special enough? Oh, this girl who's a medium came into my channel, and
Your game channel.
my Twitch channel. Yes, yeah. Good.
We're not talking about psychic channels and things like that.
No, she came into my channel and she was like talking about it, and I was just like, I wish I was born that way. I wish I was that special. I think we all have those abilities, kind of thing, but it's suppressed or you ignore it a lot of the time. But I wish I was so clear, like that I was like, I knew I was psychic or something.
And with the stresses this week as well, we've had some kind of good lifting moments.
Yes.
We've learned some things.
Leveled up.
We've leveled up. We really have leveled up.
Yeah.
This is really starting to feel more like it was a challenge rather than just big rocks being thrown at us. So, this week, it's a weenier World Weary episode. There's a lot of W's in our things.
Yes.
And it's folk night at the World Weary pub.
Woo!
You're playing a little Celtic guitar, got a flute, a man with a really long beard and a little fiddle.
And you come down the pub to sing a bit of a ditty while everyone's drinking.
That's right, we got some little folk tales for you. And I'm starting off with a story from Cornwall.
Ooh.
Cornwall in England. It's like a county of England that's sort of isolated a bit from everything else. It's only connected to Devon. But, it's past these pirates and Poldark. That's what's going on there. Smuggling, stormy, rural, rocky coast, mining. It's like crowded in the summer and bleak in the winter. And this story is a Violet classic, and you'll see why shortly.
Here we go.
This is the legend of cruel Coppinger, or Coppinger, I'm not sure. That's going to make this interesting one to read. Should we call him Coppinger?
No, let's make
Coppinger?
people fight over it. Hashtag Team Coppinger, hashtag Team Coppinger. That's what I'm going to do with pronunciations from now on. If they can't have beef with us, they have to have beef with each other.
Yeah.
Because at some point before us, someone has mispronounced it. Okay.
I think it might be, I think it might be like a Scandinavian name. So
well, they can fight over it.
I'm just going to keep interchanging as I see fit.
Fair enough.
Maybe.
Yeah. That way you're only pissing people off half the time.
That's
new
the goal.
podcast
That's the
tactics.
goal of this podcast, okay? Is to piss people off. So this story probably originates from around the 17th or 18th century. Okay, so that's like a bit piratey.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's Pirates of the Caribbean vibes.
Ooh.
A little unknown or unnamed village on the coast of Cornwall. Probably pretty poor kind of place. Probably a lot of like fishermen, and it's very isolated.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. One night there is a massive storm, and the villagers see that there is a big old ship off the shore that's gotten into trouble.
Oh no.
So as you did back then, if you're like a poor village or whatever, like living like on the beach basically, everyone pegs it down to the beach. Like, doesn't matter how stormy it is, how wet it is, what time of night it is, and they're gonna see what's going on. Because if this is a shipwreck, for these people there, there could be an opportunity to make some serious money from anything that washes up on the shore, or like anything that can be like sneakily salvaged if you could like row out the next day. And remember, it's it's nighttime, it's stormy, it's windy as fuck, it's cold, wet, people like standing around on the beach like with like cloaks and lanterns trying to keep an eye on this shipwreck. It's probably like burning or screaming in the distance or whatever. And probably a lot of excitement and hype, but it's also a potentially risky or dangerous situation. Who's going to come off the boat? Are there survivors? What is this ship that's wrecked? Looking out at the ship, some of the villagers can just make out what looks like a really tall, huge man standing alone on the deck of this sinking ship. Out in the sea. Then this giant man leaps, like throws himself into the sea, and before they know it, he has swum up to the shoreline, Like, they've never seen anyone swim that fast and with such power before.
Oh my gosh.
And suddenly, these villagers are confronted with a massive, gigantic man wading through the surf towards them. So you can imagine some, like, local men there on the beach. They kind of try to apprehend him. They've got no idea who this man is or where he comes from, but he's so tall and huge, he just, like, pushes past this crowd of people in complete silence.
Wow.
He's 7 foot tall, as wide as 2 men. He has dark black eyes, and he's been on a ship, so you can imagine he's probably, like, really ripped, or, you know. And in complete silence, he just pushes through, and then he tears a cloak off an elderly woman, causing her to fall over onto the beach, and he, like, wraps it around himself to, like, dry himself off. And then he approaches a young local woman called Dina Hamlin, who has come down to the beach on her horse to see if there's any bounty from the shipwreck that's washed up. And she's poor, she's got very elderly parents to look after, so she's just sitting there on horseback watching the scene unfold. And before she can do anything, this huge, strange man just leaps up onto the horse behind her, grabs onto her tightly and shouts something in a foreign language, like kicks her horse, and of course the horse speeds off and charges back to its home.
Oh wow.
Dina's home. This girl's home. How many women out there would you think would find that a sexy fantasy in a romance novel?
This is like, oh, here we go. There's a bunch of ladies right now like, oh, it's getting good.
Imagine you're like a poor, like tired out, like young girl or woman
caring for your elderly parents,
and you're poor as fuck, and you're living on the outskirts of a shit village, like in isolated, like poor Cornwall back then, and you just had to come down to the beach on your horse to like look for like something to scavenge so you can trade that for food and survive another day. And you see this like giant man come out, and he was like ripped as fuck from being on a ship, and just like swam better than like any Cornish person had ever seen, and it's massive, and just like strides up and jumps on the back of your horse and then like rides you away. It's like a Mills and Boone plot.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's like, this is, I see like middle-aged woman in a sun lounger like reading a like romance,
sipping a bit of a Merlot.
So Dina, this is though against her will.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
yeah.
So that, you know, they've ended up back at her family home on the edge of this village. They're kind of living on the outskirts of even that society. They're so poor. She didn't invite him there, but this mysterious giant man basically installs himself into her house with her elderly parents and basically keeps them all captive in their own home. He disregards anything they say or do. You know, I think that's partly because there's a language barrier.
Yeah.
But he's violent and scary.
Yeah.
And he starts to use their home he basically keeping them under house arrest in their own home as soon as he turns up. And he uses their home as a base to start up a load of illegal activities. So, like, before they know it, their house has become a hub for sketchy, like, smugglers and, like, weird, like, foreign, like, dodgy merchants that have turned up, and basically pirates.
So he probably locks them up, and then, like, there were probably people he was in line with, sort of, like, so waiting to come. Yeah.
He was already connected with people, you know, in the area, and he's a crim, and he's a bit of a mastermind as well.
Okay.
So, you know, this young woman and her elderly parents are suddenly, like, held hostage by this giant... like an evil guy, and he's literally having pirates turning up at their house and like hanging out there and like using it as a base. And anytime they asked him anything or like confronted him, he just completely ignored them. You know, so you know the old parents be like, you know, would you mind, you know, taking off your shoes? Like, we've just had like clean carpets installed. And they're like, oh, no, don't touch that. Just like, he'd like go around like smashing everything, you know, would you mind like not putting your feet on the table? And he'd just like smack them, like,
aww.
It was that kind of levels of like, it didn't give a fuck. He just completely taken over this household.
Jesus.
You know, like he was having his pirate friends there. They're getting drunk and like partying late at night, playing music. And, you know, do you mind keeping it down? And, it's, you know, it's past midnight. And they've just been met with silence or like beatings.
Oh, this guy's not very nice.
Nope. And the village can't do fuck all because they're like little fishermen and no one knows what to do with this massive evil foreign man. And they also decide that he's definitely got superhuman strength, speed, and he's probably a demon.
Sorry, it always catches me by surprise for some reason. I think at some point in this podcast I'm going to stop being surprised. So I relish these moments where I'm just shocked by this nonsense.
The village elders get together and they figure out that this foreign demonic language that this guy is like shouting at everyone.
Is it
French? No, it's the tongue of the Vikings. So he's a Viking demon pirate. And back at Dina's house, where her and her family have basically been under house arrest, and all these nefarious activities and like smugglers and pirates have just moved in. This mysterious giant man eventually introduces himself to Dina and her parents as Coppinger, or Coppinger. Now, we said, you know, that it's probably actually stems from like Norse. It's like a surname of Norse origin. And it unfolds that this man is from Denmark. So they've got a giant, crazy Dane who's like got shipwrecked and then just taken over this house. So when this news reaches the rest of the village, the other locals start to call him Cruel Coppinger. They probably wish they'd intervened earlier on, though, because, you know, rather than just letting this poor girl and her family be held hostage by this crazy man, you know, they just kind of let that happen. They should have done something about it, because Coppinger basically takes over the whole village with his gang. Oh, wow. Yep, they take the entire settlement hostage. They basically beat up anyone that won't do what they say. They get the whole village basically doing slavery, doing all the dirty work, you know, growing the food, feeding this gang of smugglers and pirates and Danes. And they start to fortify the village into like a smuggling stronghold. He has men, women, children, the old, the young, the sick, the pregnant, digging secret tunnels under the village, all down to the beach and stuff for these smuggling operations. He also has like kids and stuff going out to collect contraband from dangerous smugglers and stuff, you know, to protect himself. And he was getting the villagers involved in wrecking boats and ships out off the beach, and have the villagers like row out and like try and pick up all the ill-begotten.
Just a pregnant lady like, ooh, I'm fishing something out. Yeah, here's something good.
All these poor like pregnant women
throwing her 3-year-old child in to get it.
Yeah, like
go get it, Johnny.
Netting out contraband out of the sea and bringing it inland. If anyone disobeyed Coppinger's orders, he would threaten them.
What was contraband back then? What was banned back then? I wonder. I
think there is some weird stuff which I just haven't got time to get into today.
We'll have to do an episode on that.
There's a lot of laws about things that you can take off ships and wrecks
it's for
and salvage and stuff. So like, there's certain rules about how far a ship needs to be, who's allowed to get it, and I think historically it was like illegal for.
I think they're okay.
You know, little villages and stuff, so they would always do sneaky operations. There's a lot of real stories. Yeah, this was like common thing. If you're poor and you lived you would probably move, in fact, to a rocky bit where there's more shipwrecks. That would probably be advantageous if you're poor, because you're more likely to be able to get things that wash up on the beach, and you could do sneaky things like illegally row out and take stuff off the shipwreck. There we go. Look it up, people. If anyone disobeyed Coppinger's orders, he would threaten them. He beheaded enemy smugglers and just regular people that tried to dob him in to the authorities. He was sticking chopped off heads and stuff around the edge of the village to warn people what would happen if they like snitched or crossed him in any way. He was basically like an evil mastermind psychopath, just taking over a whole community of people.
Jesus.
Using them as slaves to power his criminal empire. Once he had control over the community, though, he starts to soften his grip on Dina and her family. He lets them go out and about. They maybe have some, special privileges. And he starts kind of checking Dina out a bit.
Uh-oh.
He starts doing nice stuff, like, buying them stuff with his smuggling pirate crime money. Probably, gives Dina, a really shit little scrubby bouquet of flowers. And her elderly parents probably warming up to him. They're having a laugh and a joke at dinner. A little bit
Stockholm syndrome.
He's probably buying them some nice food and stuff. And they're like, oh, he's actually all right. And in Dina, she's probably, we can imagine in our fantasy romance book, she's really smart. She's not like any of the other girls in the village. She's hot. She's
it's Beauty and the Beast territory here.
And she's like, oh, actually this could be great because I've had to spend my whole life in this boring, shitty village full of boring, stupid locals who are like hobbits, and I'm like an elf.
The cruel Queen Coppinger.
Yeah, and we're poor, and then this mysterious giant Danish hunk, turns up from a shipwreck and rides away with me on a horse. It's and he chose me, and it's all kind of, it's a very sexy romance plot we've got here. Definitely make it into a tacky romance. In fact, I'm sure it's already been done. But actually, the reality was probably
very horrifying.
It was probably very dangerous and rapey and violent. So he eventually asks for her hand in marriage, and they get married, and all the locals are like, oh, nothing good will come of this.
Oh.
And they're really suspicious, because they all have experienced firsthand that he's a violent, dangerous guy. Using Dina's family home as the base still, Coppinger mysteriously raises enough money to buy himself a house and lands, and essentially sets himself up as the de facto leader of a feared band of smugglers, wreckers, and pirates in Cornwall. They basically set up the Cruel Gang, of which Cruel Coppinger, this fearsome, gigantic Dane, is the leader. He then starts to control a number of bridle paths and footpaths, which converged at a steep cliff, at the foot of which was a cave where he kept his ill-begotten booty and stolen sheep and cows, livestock. He had the local villagers working around the clock as watchmen, keeping an eye on anyone coming or going into the area. He basically had the entire village on watch for any authorities that might turn up. Eventually, word does travel around Cornwall that a 7-foot demonic pirate with superhuman strength, speaking a strange language, had literally captured a village and was using it as a hub for an organised crime smuggling pirate gang. So people are saying, you heard what done happened to village down there? Gert massive bloke turned up, done taken over the whole village, he did. I was talking to old Bert, and he said, bloke's foreign. Well, I heard he's got evil, and he's got magic powers, and he's tall as a house, and he can lift 8 cows, and he can jump over the moon. So it's that kind of...
Yeah.
This is how things...
Still going on today.
This is how crazy folk tales get made. So word reaches the powers that be in olden days Cornwall, whoever the authorities were. They send revenue officers down there, which are basically tax collectors.
Yep. It's all about them taxes.
I mean, I guess the modern day equivalent would really be like a bailiff or like a debt collector. Shark. Yeah, something you've got to be hard, you've got to be ready to beat someone up, punch, intimidate. Yeah, they don't send softies out to do tax collection and that kind of stuff. Coppinger isn't having any of it. To discourage surveillance by the revenue officers, he gets one of his gang to behead the first tax collector dude that turns up. So the first one that turns up is just swing, just slice it off. And that actually works because after that, the tax people were like, fuck that. We are not going down there. You have to find someone else to deal with it.
It's an army situation.
Because that's what they do with the first. They didn't even talk to him. They just immediately sliced his head off. That's some Game of Thrones, that's some messed up, serious stuff. So the authorities basically leave him to his devices, owning this whole fucking smuggling village full of slaves. He's raking the money in. They're stealing all the cows and sheep, plundering boats and ships, anything to like rake in the peas, get the money. And Coppinger, eventually, he even gets a custom pirate ship built for his cruel gang called the Black Prince, a ship built to his own design, and he had it made in a shipyard in Denmark and sailed over to him.
Wow.
Like, that's how, you know, powerful he got.
Money.
And then what did he do with that from Cornwall? He terrorized the English Channel in his custom Danish pirate ship.
Whoa.
Using his extensive knowledge of the waters of the Cornish coast, he then started luring tax collector ships into the shallow waters of the cove and wrecking them. When his father-in-law died, so Dina's dad, Coppinger was very eager to secure the remainder of the family money. And so in order to force his now widowed mother-in-law to hand over the money, he would threaten to whip Dina with a cat of nine tails. And of course his widowed mother-in-law handed him all the money, and he built like a huge house and loads more land. Dina and Cruel Coppinger have a son together, but the son is born a deaf mute.
Okay.
It was said that because of his father's crime, he was born without a soul.
Oh my gosh. That's so backwards from the day.
Yeah, this is that time period, you know, there's some sad stuff. So this son, when he grows up, he was known to be mischievous and cruel. And in fact, one day he was found by local villagers laughing at the top of a cliff in like a creepy, fucked up way. And they looked over the edge of the cliff, and there was a body of a neighbour's younger child.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. So that's some messed up shit, like what abuse is going on, you know. The tax collectors start cracking down big time. They've realised that Coppinger is starting to pose a real threat, and they don't want his operation to get any bigger. They start putting a lot of pressure on him and the cruel gang, and eventually, one night, there's a massive storm. No one dares to set sail out in the sea, and Coppinger takes the opportunity to just disappear.
Oh, jeez.
A lone man saw him go out in a small boat to a ship that had just been anchored off the shore. It immediately raised its sails and disappeared into the night at insane speed that had never been seen before. Well, duh, because they were trying to make a quick escape before tax collectors killed this dude. So considering the dramatic circumstances in which he arrived in Cornwall with a storm...
Yeah, same.
He left again, carried away with the storm, never to be seen again.
Ugh.
So this folktale of Cornwall originally gets recorded by a man called Reverend Robert Stephen Hawker, so it's like a priest. In 1866, he publishes a book. So that was like a common thing. People were like recording all of the like folk tales and stuff, which is great because it's
otherwise lost.
A huge source, of all of these oral traditions that would have been, you know, forgotten. But he probably embellished it a lot, and there's been many other embellishments of the story as well, and it's probably embellished for like a couple hundred years before it gets written down. So what's interesting, though, about this one is that because it's wasn't really that long ago, it's like 17th, 18th century probably, is like where this sprung from. The unnamed boffins that we thank a lot out there for all their research have actually identified real identities, possible identities for Cruel Coppinger. He was a real man because, of course, you know, it's that thing about, it's the classic tale of how a grain of truth or a nugget of truth can evolve through storytelling and embellishments and exaggerations into, you know, it becomes a demon pirate with supernatural abilities when it was really just like a crazy foreign dude who's really violent and giant. So for the identity of Cruel Coppinger, two possibilities. One is a John Coppinger who arrived in Cornwall around 1793. And then there's another man, a Daniel Coppinger, who was shipwrecked there in 1792. So it's likely that the legend is actually a mixture of both of those men's tales. So John Coppinger was a Danish man, but his family had actually established themselves in Ireland. He probably left Ireland, went to France, where he had estates, And then following the French Revolution, he kind of escaped to Cornwall and bought an estate near Trewiddle, which I've been to. It's near St Austell in Cornwall.
Okay.
And it's likely that he was like smuggling things from Brittany and France into Cornwall. The Daniel Coppinger is closer to the version of the Coppinger in the legend. He was shipwrecked in 1792 into Cornwall. He married a woman named Hamlin,
Ooh.
same surname, though she was much older than the young girl in the story. And
Well,
she was
that
called...
happens in storytelling. They're like,
God.
oh, she's got to be young and sexy.
Yeah, it's been turned into Mills and Boone, but violent and really dangerous. And she was called Anne Hamlin rather than Dina Hamlin. This man had property in Hartland in Cornwall, and he was a known free trader, which basically a pirate or smuggler or crim. And he would claim to be a former Navy surgeon, and supposedly some people who knew the folktale also knew a version where he was in the Royal Navy originally. So that maybe, it's a sign those two kind of men stories might have got kind of interesting. So yeah, probably results from a really smart but violent, dangerous psychopath Danish criminal dude just took over a whole village in Cornwall.
Or like some Danish dude, they were just living their lives, and because local yokels can't stand foreigners, they have to make up this crazy things about him because they just don't understand his words.
Yeah.
And because they have vague images of Vikings, who knows? But yeah.
I suspect, yeah.
Creepy, though.
It's certainly massively exaggerated.
Oh, yeah. No, that was really cool. I've never heard that story.
I just want to imagine it's really the romantic fantasy version. I want to read
I would
love to read the Mills and Boone version of this.
Yeah.
Who is the Daniel Craig moment of wading out of the sea, but put like a Thor, like Jason Momoa with like blonde hair.
Yeah.
Wading out of the sea. I'm just leave you all with that thought.
All right, Violet. So my story, we're going to go to Japan.
Ooh,
again.
Another Japan one.
So I might need your help with pronunciations.
It's another Japanese lesson by someone who can't really speak Japanese. Was not very good at it.
So, have you ever heard of the tale of the Utsuro-Bune?
I don't think so. I don't recognize the word.
Right. So basically, I'm stealing all this information, which steals it from Wikipedia anyway, from this crazy website I found that I need to reveal to everyone. It's
going to be great. It's going to be a website.
It's called
critic episode.
It's going to be like literally my story is sort of also about this website. So I'm reading from this website, so you're going to have to check this out, guys. Cult of Nyarzir.wordpress.com.
Oh, is it going to be like Fred Batt's personal website? Are there 2005 GIFs on it? There's
just imagine people who are
GIFs or GIFs?
Japanophiles, GIFs.
Oh, okay.
Or to be honest, there's a huge argument about it. I'm going to cut this out because I don't even want the internet touching us about it. It's too controversial. So I'll show you more, but basically these people are what I think are Japanophiles from different parts of the world who've created this weird pseudo-Japanese-ish based religion based off of semi-Asian philosophies mixed with a good amount of Western culture to make it edible. And this whole website, but they happen to do a feature on this Utsuro-Bune case. I'm going to show you this picture to start out with, out of context. So this, one day, washes ashore at Japan. A redheaded woman steps out of you can either call it what looks to be a rice pot in their eyes, in the witness's eyes. But for all intents and purposes, it kind of looks like a UFO or a USO. So...
C version.
Exactly. So, legend has it that on February 22nd in 1803, some local fishermen in the Hitachi province on the eastern coast of Japan discovered a strange vessel floating in the sea. According to the legend, this vessel contained an attractive young woman who appeared to be between 18 and 20, and the fishermen brought her inland to figure out what the fuck's going on, but she wasn't able to speak their language, and they weren't able to understand her language either. They also describe the situation in great detail. There's 3 different versions of this, and each one comes after the other, and with each version there's less and less information. So in reality, the only one that people really tend to quote is the Toen Shou
This is going to be a complicated one. Toen Shousetsu.
Okay.
Toen
Shousetsu. Close enough.
Toen Shousetsu.
Okay. Well, yeah. What she said. What she shetsu? Okay, and that one didn't fly. So it's Tales from the Rabbit Garden, composed in 1825
Tales from the Rabbit Garden. It's Peter Rabbit.
Kyokute Bakken?
Kyokute Bakken.
The manuscript is on display at Machida, Tokyo Prefecture.
Yeah, that's
so good. There are other story versions, but all 3 books are pretty much the same, taken originally from that.
Yeah, you got it.
So here it is straight from Wikipedia land. They towed the vessel back to land. It's about 3.3 meters high and 5 meters wide. They think it looks like maybe an incense burner, kohako.
Yeah, one of those like rounded Japanese incense things.
Seems to be, they describe it as being made of red coated rosewood, while the lower part was some kind of plating to protect against the sharp-edged rocks. The upper part had several windows made of either glass or crystal, covered with bars and clogged with some kind of tree resin. The windows were completely transparent, and the baffled fishermen looked inside. The inner side of the Utsuro-Bune was decorated with text written in an unknown language. They also found things inside, such as bed sheets, a bottle filled with 3.6 liters of water. I don't know how they got that specific. Did they measure it? It's very specific. Cake and kneaded meat. They saw the beautiful young woman, and her body was said to be about 1.5 meters, so under 5 foot, and she had red hair and eyebrows, and the hair was elongated by artificial white extensions.
Cool.
The extensions, they believe, could have been made of white fur or thin white-powered textile streaks. They can't find anything similar to describe it as. The skin of the lady was very pale pink, and she wore precious, long, and smooth clothes of unknown fabrics.
Ooh.
And when she began speaking, no one understood her, and she didn't understand them. And although she appeared friendly and courteous, she acted very oddly, for she always clutched this strange quadratic box made of this pale material. She did not allow anyone to touch the box, no matter how kindly or pressingly they asked. An old man from the village told everyone, this woman could be a princess of a foreign land, who married at her homeland, but when she had an affair with a townsman after marriage...
Who comes up with that story?
There's this old man, he's like, maybe she fucked some random townie, and it was a scandal, and her lover was killed for punishment. She was banned from home, so basically, this old man spins this story, and it gets her a lot of sympathy, so she escapes the death penalty. This is what he thinks in his head. Instead, she might have been exposed in that Utsuro-Bune to leave her to her destiny. So they think she's been sent in the ship because she's been like a scarlet woman or whatever.
Wow.
And if this should be correct, the box may contain the head of her deceased lover.
What?
It's very
Who comes
clear.
up with that? Like, that's
what's happening. We can't talk to her.
Obvious.
That her dead lover's in that fucking box. His head's in there.
This person's watched too many dramas.
Yeah, he's read too many pots with stories on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so during this incident, a small board with a pinned head was found. Oh wait, sorry, let me go back. Yeah. In the past, a very similar object with a woman was washed ashore on a close-by beach, and during that incident, a small board with a pinned head was found.
A pinned head?
Yes.
Like what? Like a head pinned to a
Yes,
board?
to a
How do you
board.
pin a head to a board? Like with a massive
With a
pin?
massive nail.
Okay, so like nailed onto a
Yeah.
pinned, I'm imagining drawing pins.
Maybe,
like,
maybe.
tacking down the edge of the like cheeks, like all the way around.
I told you I'm plagiarizing this from this Cult of Nizar
Yeah, well,
website.
they've done their words wrong.
The content of the box, therefore, could be the same. So that's what they think. So that's where it comes from, is this lady that washed ashore before who showed up with a head. So,
Welcome present.
yeah.
Hi, neighbor. What country is sending out these women? Is there like a nearby country like putting women in like a box? It's like, I don't know.
Who knows?
Like sending like it's like cold calling.
But yeah, since they think it's...
Are they trying to convert them?
No. Well, no, not that they see, because otherwise she probably would make an effort to learn their language.
Yeah.
So since it seems to be the tradition to expose the boats at sea, they decide to bring the woman back to her ship and let her drift away. From human sight, it might be cruel, but it seems to be her predetermined destiny, they thought.
They're just
they
coming up with a nice
reassembled her
way to be
boat.
like, we can't deal with this, let's just push it back out to sea and
Well, they
pretend it
probably
didn't
are like,
happen.
oh no, if she is running, she can't possibly be exploring in a boat on her own. She's got to be this
There's a
fucking
reason she's been
Jezebel woman, and she's been put in this boat, and she's got this box that's precious to her that clearly
What
is
if it's a
dodgy.
crazy religious thing? Like, they sacrifice a woman into the sea in a mystical boat.
Andromeda? No, that she was going to be killed by the Kraken.
It is kind of along those lines, though, of
Yeah.
like, there's a big thing about sacrificing women into the water and
Yeah.
stuff, and like,
Well, any chance they get to kill a woman in history
Yeah.
is pretty.
and make it pretty.
Yeah. And make it
Glamorously
glamorous.
sacrifice young women.
She's better be wearing like one piece of fabric that's blowing in the wind as they
a
sacrifice
pink
her.
sheet,
Yeah.
bed sheet.
So yeah, that's pretty much the account. She washes ashore, they take a record of the weird symbols on her ship. They're too scared of her and she's too different, but they are nice enough to her, but they send her packing kind of thing.
Yeah.
They send her adrift again. So here's some theories that this website in particular was talking about. So they think it might be connected to a similar Japanese folklore about the Great Sea Palace.
Oh,
The Dragon Sea Palace?
yeah.
You know, I knew you would know about that. And so there's this character from that legend that is a woman who sort of dresses similarly, that in actually is like this sacrifice story as well. There's one. So the description of the box in different accounts of the legend connects to the attractive woman who's found in the vessel. It basically mimics certain ideas that have been contained in Japanese mythology for ages, like Ryugujo?
Ryugujo. Ryugujo.
Okay.
Ryugujo. I don't know. Ryugujo.
So, God, this is gonna get messy, guys.
Is that a hyphen? Might be Ryugujo.
That'd be fine.
Nah.
So, in all versions of the account, she's hung on this box. So, in this other legend, Toyotama Hime no Mikoto, who's also known as Otohime, in one legend...
Basically a princess.
Yeah. Toyotama Hime no Mikoto, who's also known as Otohime, weds Urashima Taro. Urashima Taro.
Paddle.
Was magically transported to the dragon palace beneath the sea after saving a turtle who happened to be the daughter of the dragon god, Ryujin, also known as Owatatsumo no Mikoto. Sorry, guys. The events following Taro's marriage to the lady is described in Wikipedia. You can look it up, but it's very similar. So she stays there with her for a few days, but wants to go back to his village and see his aging mother. So he requests Otohime's permission to leave, but she says she's sorry to see him go, but wishes him well and gives him a mysterious box. Will protect him from harm, but which she tells him never to open, which by all accounts, the Utsuro-Bune, she didn't open it ever. So he grabs the box, jumps on the back of the same turtle, and is soon at the seashore.
A lot of similarities and connections between that story and
A lot of fucked up shit
this
happens.
woman in the rice bowl
exactly.
ship thing.
A lot of shit happens to him, and he ends up opening the box, and then there's some crazy smoke, and he's suddenly old, so he basically gets punished for that. It's interesting that there were boxes there. Another theory, apparently, shout out, Warlock Asylums theory number 2. Now imagine my surprise when this website took a turn in their theories. It announces this is Warlock Asylums theory.
Okay.
For those who are not into the supernatural but seek to understand the meaning of the Utsuro-Bune legend, we can say that the woman, the boat, and everything else was a mission organized possibly by Russia. It is very well possible that the woman was sent out to take notes and survey some of the coastal regions of Japan in order to get an idea of its geographical dimensions. The military strategy is identical to that of the Trojan horse. Shortly after the incident, Japan encountered a series of interactions with the Russians in an attempt to get Japan to open up its borders. In the first half of the 19th century, Japan was a secretive island isolated from the world by its self-imposed Sakoku trade policy. So they only traded with China and the Netherlands, and even then it was strongly restricted, and on the island of Deshima in the port of Nagasaki, they weren't even allowed in Japan.
Well, I mean, planting women as a way to, like, get a foot in the door, although scary and dangerous as fuck if for the women, is kind of a clever idea, because they're a lot less, like, they're kind of a gift, and it's a lot less likely to...
And if you make it a young, beautiful woman...
Yeah. But there is, you know, women are a bit less likely, I think, to just be, like, clubbed to death as soon as they get out of their floating rice bowl ship. So, although the problem is then you might have local ladies being like, like, she trouble, get her out of this neighborhood. Send her back out to sea, dudes.
When this was investigated years later, there's some reports about a book about Russia written by Kanamori Kinken. It describes traditional Russian clothes and hairstyles and mentions a popular method to dust some of the hair white with powder. It also mentions that many Russian women have natural red hair and that they wear skirts similar to what the lady in the legend wore. So yeah, one document says 3.6 liters, one says 36 liters. I think it's more likely to be a lot of water. I don't think they would have sent her out. I don't think she would have been in that boat unless she had like this capacity. But that's basically the story. It's not a very long story. It's very...
Well, this is a weenie episode, you know.
But what I do want to say is, guys, check out this website, because if you go deep into it, I'm going to show you this shit. Right, so this website is like basically a religion. It's really hard to figure out, but they call it Ninzuwu language, Ninzuwu philosophy. Questions from our readers, that's what I want to click on.
Okay.
All right. Is it a modern day form of Omyodo? Where can I find information that God and the Creator are not one and the same? Is the art of Ninzuwu the fulfillment of the Buddha Gnostic workbook's prophecy about Shinto? Why is the mirror a sacred emblem in Shinto, and what does it mean for Ninzuwu practitioners? Is membership to the art of Ninzuwu limited to a particular ethnicity or race of people? And then you go into it deep, and there are people who have done, like, they have a bunch of books that you can buy on their philosophies, and they've got a bunch of people who posted with names like Necronomicon Dude, and they like literally call themselves like Samurai of the Dragon Palace and weird shit like that. So it's like these two Spanish dudes run it. So check this out. I loved their in-depth thing from 2014, this article, Cult of N-Y-A-R-Z-I-R, so Cult of Nyarzir.wordpress.com. It's very weird and very interesting. When we do stuff on cults, I might have to feature them. But yeah, that's my mini episode. What do you think? I was
going to ask you, what do you think?
I think it's the closest account to a USO or UFO, because, I mean, it's strange to be made of glass. It's so specifically described.
Japan's folklore is because they've got one of their like oldest legends is one of a woman from the moon, and I think it is the oldest recorded or oldest oral tradition in the whole world that connects the idea that the moon might be a kind of Earth, like a planet you can stand on, because you didn't necessarily have that concept back then.
Yeah,
they just look like.
Well, you don't know that it reflects.
In the sky. You don't realize that that's what you're standing on is one of them.
Yeah.
Like, So that's kind of crazy that like a real long time ago people had got that inspiration that the moon might have a world of people and cities on it, and they have a whole legend about a girl who is actually a princess from the moon, and it's one of the oldest stories, and it comes back up in Sailor Moon. It really inspired the Sailor Moon stories.
They've always identified with that shit though, like the moon in general is a powerful symbol in general, especially for women, I believe, and so it's just one of those things that I always
it's just magical
to.
I just think magical that people that long ago imagine being like the first people to like think like, well, what if that moon thing up there is like this? Like it's like a big
it just weirdly
a planet.
It was in 1804.
The concept of a planet. You know.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's just like it's crazy. I think people have had ideas like this for as long as people have been peopling, and I just think we put ourselves in these boxes of we must be stupid because we use fire in like, you know what I mean? Because we have basic tools. I think people have had these sort of ideas, or at least somehow it comes out of us.
Yeah, like, well, that's why that Moon Princess story is like beyond like really, really old, really, really ancient legend. So it's just so cool that people were chatting about those stories. Imagine how exciting that would have been to hear the first time as a child, and like the mind-blowing concept that the moon could have cities on it and people.
And because this story is in 1804, it's not that very long ago, and they have records, they've written it down, so it's just very peculiar to me. I like the theory that it could be a Russian woman, and that it's just
I really think it could be. That's
maybe
why
the
one of my
box was her navigation tools, and she didn't want them to touch navigation tools because you were fucked.
Get the fuck home,
And traditionally, a lot of seafaring navigation tools are in boxes because of the water and stuff.
Yeah, so they have to be kept safe. Everything was in boxes and little pouches back then.
So I wonder if maybe she was just a very smart sailor who was doing a job for the Russians, and because these Japanese folk are, they're just villagers on the shore, they make up this sort of story to entertain themselves because it's a young, beautiful woman. And how could she must be a princess. And oh, poor thing, she must have done something wrong. And, typical, we just gotta let her go. And meanwhile, she's probably sketched up their whole coastline.
That's why one of my first instincts was what country is sending people out, and it's a smart thing if they did pick a lady,
and they don't even have to necessarily send her the whole way. They could have taken her by ship and put her in that thing
they could have
to make her look
hidden
strange.
Their ship off behind some rocks somewhere and just pushed her on out onto the coast
and just made this fancy looking ship that's not actually supposed to be seaworthy, it's just supposed to make her have an entrance that is mysterious.
And like that's what you want to do. You want to make a big
Trojan
impression.
Horse. Like, look at this interesting thing.
Yeah, you're less likely to smash it to pieces
and hurt
her
if she looks like she comes from this advanced
and
place.
if it looks nice.
Yeah,
not even advanced, just like freaking like cool and different.
Yeah, but a lot of people use this as a evidence for possible UFOs and USOs and stuff, and I really like those theories, but there's not a lot of meat to it. They can grasp onto the weird symbols, but at the end of the day, weird symbols could just be another language. It could be a coded language. So, no one else could figure it out. Trading is lucrative. Japan has resources that other people want, and they're very greedy with their trade. They're like, we're only trading with China and the Netherlands. Maybe Russia wanted some of that.
Just because it looks like a rice bowl doesn't mean it's an alien saucer.
Yeah.
I like that both those stories came from recent-ish.
Yeah, and they're from the sea.
Yeah,
they had sea elements of coastline villagers getting weird things happen to them.
Yeah, it's all connected.
How do we
Every
end up doing
episode
that?
has been trickling into the other one. We've had a lot of dead body stuff, and it's all following funny little patterns, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and it's weird because the next episode,
the best thing was that we have to we don't tell each other exactly what we're doing, but we have to kind of give a name to the story so that we don't do the same one, and we put them on a spreadsheet, and so we can check on there, and then we make sure that we avoid encountering that in our research when we're looking for what we're going to talk about. And we were talking about what episode we were recording next week, and Cassie said to me, I'm doing, mine's about a person or a man, and I said, oh, it's okay, because mine's not human.
And it really scared me. Well, you'll understand why it's scary when we announce next week's episode when it comes out. Because it was just...
I was like, it's alright, mine's not human.
And I was just like, what the fuck? You'll see why, in context, that's terrifying. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Well, yeah, that's my story. Should we do some fucking tarot?
Yeah.
Do you have any wrap-up stuff you need to take care of?
Nah. Just tarot wrap up.
Tarot wrap up. We've got a short episode. We're going to the beach for the weekend, so hopefully we will be decompressed and energized.
We're getting away from all the technology.
Yes.
For nature therapy world weary weekend.
And I'm only gonna maybe bring my phone to take a few world period pictures.
We're gonna take like beach selfies, Instagram the hell out of it.
Yeah. I'm bringing my portable ring light.
At least on the first day. By day 2 we'll be like scraped with sand and burnt and like not smelly bothered. And like all our makeup will be running and like my hair will have gone frizzy and I can't straighten it because I'm at the beach.
Oh, all these cards.
Last week's one was a bit scary, wasn't it? And it did sort of have a lot of meaning to us now.
We have all cauldrons in this reading.
I think we're going to be taking pictures now, or sending you guys a thing each week of what the tarot cards were, so you can have
as suggested by listener. Should we shout out their name? Do they mind? Do you think listener Grendel gave us a little bit of a tip to maybe,
it's cool for you guys to have a look at it, especially if you've never delved into tarot cards before. It's quite, they're pretty cute, and there's an interesting bit of history, even if you don't necessarily believe in the power of the tarot.
So our recent past, and we've had a pretty rough week of it, so especially...
We've had a hell of a
The podcast reflects our life at this point, because, every week we get set, we actually have to reflect on our week, which has been really weird, but really therapeutic in a way, like me having to reflect, think about what I didn't like in the week and what I had fun with, because I always we try to be uplifting. So recent 5 of Cups, regret, failure, disappointment, pessimism. I think that sort of describes our recent week. I had to push myself to edit this week.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of self-doubt this week.
And it came up in the cards last week, and I didn't believe it because we were so on a high, weren't we? We were like, the present card was like, woo!
Yeah.
And it's so true.
But we're coming out stronger. It's always a lesson. And that's quite a positive thing to take away from tarot, is that it's never sort of here as fate and doom.
Yeah.
There's always optimism, because it's all of these things are kind of cycles that you will progress through. And each one is sort of, even if it's something difficult or negative, it's actually just more of like a challenge. Like when you come out on the other end of this problem, you're going to be more...
stronger.
You're going to be stronger. You're going to be a better person. You'll have evolved a bit.
Yeah, so, that's basically fucked up shit, and you can see he's, depressed there, recent past, he's spilled over his cauldrons.
This is like me, yesterday, spilling, wine on myself as, an annoying kid in the background, running off with one of my cauldrons. I'm just there,
and we've had that outburst
with,
of tears. And then we're coming into the present is the King of Cauldrons. Look how chill he is. He's just composed. He's dealt with it. Emotionally balanced. Diplomatic. He sits on his he's sitting there very comfortably.
He is the most
throne.
Chill looking King of Cauldrons I've ever seen.
He's got this cool dad vibe going on. He's chill.
Cool beatnik dad.
It's asking us to take that energy and be that instead of what we had last week. It's saying this is where we're at now. We've reflected on what the fuck happened. We have to be this chill dude with a cup of tea, looking in the distance, happily, but with eyes that say I've seen shit.
Oh god, those bags on the King of Cauldrons. And that is, we're trying to be zen and serene at the moment and keep our heads above the water and stay calm to we've got to break the cycle of chaos at the moment.
And in our recent, our future, our possible future card, see, we're on all cups or cauldrons in my deck because it's a witchy deck. It's reversed 7 of Cups. So it appears when you have different choices, and instead of choosing the option that may appeal to others, we have to rely on inner wisdom. So we can't be influenced by others at this time. We might find ourselves with multiple opportunities or ideas, but we have to ground ourselves and reflect on what we want long term. All the shiny new objects in front of us have a magic power over us, and we might lose focus if we don't. We have to not chase after pipe dreams and just focus on the reality. And it kind of can mean that you're overwhelmed by choice. So you have to reduce your options or figure out what's really important. So basically, this card's here to remind us that if there's a choice coming up ahead, to trust our instincts and don't let outer influence fuck us up. Keep this cool, fatherly... We've had the emotional outburst. We can keep this emotionally balanced energy as best we can to avoid upset by those choices.
It's a good thing we're doing a lot of like beach trips and nature trips at the moment to keep us
I wonder what kind of choices.
out.
How many people are going to be trying to sponsor us soon? No, see, I got to watch out for those pipe dreams. But yeah.
Crushing.
But yeah, that's our tarot. We'll see if we can add an image. Eventually, Violet's going to design a whole tarot deck.
I actually want to. It's like I love like
so
oracle
cool.
decks and stuff. I'd love to get my
We could get it printed.
arty skills up enough to do that one day. I used to design them when I was a kid, but they weren't.
And you can
that
even
good.
have special little symbols and sneaky
we will
subliminal stuff.
We would definitely make a World Weary podcast tarot if we ever get some nice sponsorships.
Yeah. So
then we could afford to do it properly. But no, tell us your folklore from your area, your local folk lore. Your crazy myths, your legends from your village.
What old man haunted the woods near you with a scythe?
Is your dad a like weird, massive, giant pirate dude that got shipwrecked on the beach and that's how he met your mother?
Are you currently carrying around a box with your dead lover's head in it?
Tell us about the time you took over a whole Cornish village of bumpkins and like literally turned it into a pirate smuggling den.
Don't tell us about the time you laughed maniacally while pushing another child off a cliff. The good child way.
Or pushing a random woman in a ship out towards Japan. And please tell us why. What was going on?
Oh, man. Yeah, send your stories to worldwearypodcast@gmail.com.
Check out our Instagram, World Weary Podcast, all in little letters. We're on Twitter at World Weary Pod. That's where we're updating all our stuff. We're on YouTube. We are at all good podcast dispensaries.
We're places you don't want
everywhere.
us to be. Check your toilet.
Check your tool shed.
Oh, man.
We could probably be in someone's using our RSS feed.
Yeah.
In your greenhouse right now. Like, we're everywhere. So if you can't find us,
that's your problem. Bye.
You need IT lessons. Like, go to one of those old person like how to use Google things. If you type in our names and World Weary Podcast enough, you'll find us.
Yeah, I reckon so. I believe in them. I believe in you.
Until next time, guys. Goodbye.
Goodbye.